everyone. This is Murray Rundis reporting for the Fatima Center, and I'm here in Rome. And we're reporting on the upcoming conclave that is now only hours away. And as the conclave approaches, a lot of people have given a lot of speculation about what each of these candidates considered Papabile, might do as Pope. But something that is easily neglected is seeing how these different candidates view Our Lady of Fatima and view the Fatima message. Of course, that's going to be extremely important for the next pontiff, as the Pope is entrusted as the leader of the Catholic Church to really listen to Our Lady's message and hopefully give the full Fatima message in its entirety and accept it and do what Our Lady has called for. I want to begin by looking at Cardinal Parolin, the liberal frontrunner, as we discussed on this last conclave report, in this upcoming conclave. And so Cardinal Parolin, he is a big member of the Curia as the Secretary of State under Francis. And so he's very influential. And for those who might be new to the Fatima message and really the controversy surrounding it, something that the Curia has been doing over the past few decades, really ever since the work of Father Gruner in trying to spread the true Fatima message, we've seen the Curia try to either suppress the Fatima message, not address any of the criticisms, which we'll see when we examine some of the other cardinals, but also try to twist it into a bit of propaganda for whatever the Curia, whatever the Vatican is promoting at the current moment. And traditionally, if we're going to use that word tradition, this has been to promote the Second Vatican Council, ecumenism, or the person of the Pope, for example, with looking at John Paul II and the assassination attempt. So this new Fatima message that the Curia has tried to adopt is saying that the third secret is all about John Paul II's, the attempted assassination of John Paul II, and that fulfilled that prophecy. And the consecration of Russia was fulfilled by John Paul II when he consecrated the world. And as watchers of the Fatima Center will know, the next question is, well, what about the effects? We haven't seen world peace. We haven't seen the conversion of Russia. Well, they would say that happened because they are ecumenists. They would say, in the Russians converting to Eastern Orthodoxy after the fall of communism, that constitutes a conversion that Our Lady was talking about. And when we see world peace, they simply mean that is the fall of the USSR, the fall of communism. And so you see John Paul II is this Fatima Pope. And we see glimpses of this, but also now adopting it for Pope Francis in things that Cardinal Parolin has said in his homilies connected with Our Lady of Fatima. So this is from the Vatican website, where in 2017, Cardinal Parolin gave a homily for a vigil mass for Our Lady of the Rosary of Fatima. Now, he says some good things. Usually these cardinals do. Members of the Curia will do this. They'll talk about really solid truths, this typology of Our Lady in the Old Testament and the fact that Our Lady is crushing the head of the serpent in the New. All of that is solid in the first paragraph. In the second paragraph, I was also very happy to see that Cardinal Parolin was promoting praying the daily rosary. That's something that is often neglected now in the popular Catholic commentary world. You'll see people talk about, well, we don't want to enforce the daily recitation of the rosary on anyone. And of course, we're not binding anyone on mortal sin when we suggest this, and lay people don't have the authority to do so anyway. But when we suggest that people should pray the daily rosary, and when we say so very emphatically, that's directly connected to Our Lady of Fatima. Our Lady of Fatima said that is the solution, that is the devotion that the modern world should take up. And so praying it daily, that's really just connecting ourselves with that Fatima message. And Cardinal Parolin, in some ways bravely, especially since in the modern period that can at times be controversial, he suggests that there. Now, this third paragraph is what stood out to me as being just a typical reconstruction of the Fatima message. And I want to read through it. He says, "This evening we offer thanks and praise to the Most Holy Trinity for the commitment of so many men and women to this mission of peace entrusted to the Virgin Mother." That's good. From east to west, the love of the Immaculate Heart of Mary has won a place in the heart of peoples as a source of hope and consolation. Now, pausing there, when Cardinal Parolin is saying east and west, I really doubt he means the Eastern Catholic churches. The Catholic Church contains more than just the Latin Rite Catholic Church. It could also, and the Roman Rite, so it contains more than just the traditional Latin Mass. You also have these Eastern Catholic churches that have their own rites. However, what has been in this reconstruction of the Fatima message, according to the principles of the Second Vatican Council, or the spirit of the Second Vatican Council, what they will often make this out to be is Eastern Orthodox. And they'll say the church breathes with two lungs. And so Russia being converted to Eastern Orthodoxy, they will say, you see, that's a connection to Our Lady there. And that's a fulfillment of the Fatima message. So moving on, he goes on to say, the Second Vatican Ecumenical Council met in order to renew the face of the Church and presented itself especially as the Council of Love. That's a bit of an outdated phrase. I think even proponents of the Second Vatican Council would be a bit find that a bit cringeworthy. The faithful, he goes on to say, the bishops, the Pope did not hail to heed the requests of the Mother of God and of man. The whole world was consecrated to her. Well, pausing there, that's not what Our Lady asked for. Our Lady asked for Russia to be consecrated to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. That's exactly the problem that we're dealing with today. Everywhere, groups and communities of believers continue to grow. Awakening from yesterday's apathy, they now work to show to the world the true face of Christianity. He quotes then, if they do what I tell you, they will have peace, end quote. 100 years after the apparitions, it is true that, as Pope Francis has observed, for many people today, peace appears as a blessing to be taken for granted, for all intents an acquired right to which not much thought is given. Yet for all too many others, peace remains merely a distant dream. Millions of people still live in the midst of senseless conflicts. Even in places once considered safe, a general sense of fear is felt. And he goes on to continue to quote Pope Francis there. And I think that shows the contradiction really within this reconstruction of the Fatima message that we see some of these cardinals promoting. Is Our Lady promised this period of peace? Well, if we don't see this period of peace in the world, what can we conclude? Can we conclude that we were obedient to Our Lady's words and the Fatima message? I don't think we can conclude that. Some of these cardinals just insist, really just assume and presuppose that the consecration was done properly. We did everything Our Lady said. And no other thought is given. And so anything afterwards, they just try to construe as being, these are the results, these are the fruits of Fatima. He goes on to say, in the midst of great concern and uncertainty about the future, what does Fatima ask of us? Perseverance in the consecration to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, shown daily by the recitation of the Rosary. And what if, despite our prayers, wars continue? Even though immediate results may not be evident, let us persevere in prayer. Prayer is never useless. Sooner or later, it will bear fruit. Prayer is capital in the hands of God. He turns to good account in his own times and ways, which are very different from our own. And that's the last part of the relevant section there I wanted to quote from Cardinal Parolin. So there's a mix of good and bad, as is typical with this reconstructed Fatima message, where we don't listen to Our Lady's words on some essential aspects, especially in recognizing the errors of Russia, in this era of communism, of materialism, of naturalism, of organized naturalism, and making the act specifically to consecrate Russia as an act specifically to get rid of these errors of Russia that are really pervasive in our modern world. We don't listen to that, but we pray the daily rosary. And look, I don't want to diminish the importance of these practical individual prayer institutions in our own life, because we do need to make that a part of our daily lives in order to live out the message of Fatima, not going around criticizing while being hypocrites in our own hearts. We have to adopt these practices in our own lives. but we also have to take it in a general sense. Our Lady of Fatima was giving us an individual solution, but also a collective solution, something where we can actually solve the problems of the world and also solve the problems in our own heart. And I'm worried that Cardinal Parolin addresses one, but doesn't address the other, the broader question of fighting those errors of communism, of materialism, of naturalism. And I'm not exactly surprised, especially since Cardinal Parolin has his own dealings with the communist Chinese. So not a candidate I am optimistic about for promoting the true message of Fatima. The candidate that is considered the conservative frontrunner in this upcoming conclave is Cardinal Erdo from Hungary. Cardinal Erdo, believe it or not, has actually said a lot about Our Lady of Fatima. He was involved in the consecration of Europe to Our Lady. He was involved in consecrating his own country, and of course, being involved with these relations with Russia and Ukraine, he had connections to that 2022 consecration that Pope Francis did. But more notably than all of those things, more notable would be his connection to the priest Father Louis Condor. Now, this connection to Father Condor is a problem because Father Condor was one of the big major figures in opposing the transparent, complete Fatima message that we especially saw at the end of the 20th century and even at the beginning of the 21st century. And this has really been the work that the Fatima Center has done so much to try to promote, get the word out there, and has faced so much opposition from this mainstream Fatima complex. And what was Father Condor promoting? Well, there was a number of interviews that were given with Father Condor and Sister Lucy. Some of these things were unsubstantiated. There was no proof that she said some of these things, and some other things that were published were openly questioned and really never given an answer to. For more information on this, the Fatima Center publishes a number of books. The Secret Still Hidden by Christopher Ferrara, another book co-written by Christopher Ferrara, as well as Fatima Priest, which goes into the work of Father Gruner. These books can really lay out the timeline for this. And really what Father Condor is promoting was that the consecration was fulfilled by John Paul II with that consecration of the world, and that the proof of this was that conversion to Eastern Orthodoxy as well, and the prevention of nuclear war. And finally, you'll also see this promotion of saying that John Paul II, in the attempted assassination on him, that was the fulfillment of the third secret, the third secret that we never really got the complete text of. And so all of these things make me skeptical of Cardinal Erdo in his attachment to the true message of Fatima. If one is getting the message of Fatima through a filtered perspective of this really propaganda for the Curia, for the post-conciliar pontificates that we've seen that have been completely untransparent, not giving us the full third secret, not delaying even the part of the third secret that we received until much later, not being transparent in regards to these interviews with Sister Lucy, these letters from Sister Lucy. All of those things are major problems, and I have major issues with. And these nationalistic attachments as well, which Cardinal Erdo certainly has to Hungary, I don't see him adopting the full Fatima message simply because there is such a focus on Father Condor being this Hungarian hero who went to Fatima and promoted this Fatima message, even though it's not the full Fatima message. So I just don't see Cardinal Erdo disregarding that for the full message of Fatima, unless there is some extraordinary work of grace that is done. What this conclave should do is not be a time for anxiety for us. It should be a time for us to study. It should be motivated by looking at these different candidates, seeing how there is divisions in the church, but using this as an opportunity. We can now study the faith and figure out, what are these cardinals disagreeing on? What is separating the orthodox from the unorthodox? What is separating the pious from the unpious? And how can we really, truly apply the Fatima message today? And so, if we're studying the Message of Fatima, reading those books, Fatima Priest, The Secret Still Hidden, understanding that message more completely, understanding how that message has been suppressed. If we're understanding the faith, we're reading our catechisms, we're reading devotional material, spiritual warfare books. I think we can capitalize on this great opportunity with this conclave to actually use this as an opportunity to move forward in our own spiritual lives, our own devotional practices, and knowledge of the faith, rather than getting stuck in a sort of mudslide of anxiety and pressure, feeling that the world is ending around us. Because remember what the Fatima message is about. Our Lady is telling us in these extraordinary times what the problem is, which are these errors of Russia. And so we have to understand what those errors of Russia are, understand how we can combat them, understanding the spiritual dangers facing us at the time, which is sin. It's always going to be sin. And using the solutions we have against both of those, the consecration of Russia and praying the rosary every day, those first Saturday devotions as well. And if we understand those and we're animated by the faith, we're animated by supernatural virtue in practicing the faith, then we can actually use this conclave for being an opportunity to better implement the Fatima message in our own lives.